The love of men is a frigid thing, a mountain stream only 3 steps from the ice. We are his, oh storm father, we are his. It is but 1,000 days, and the ever-storm comes. Collected on the first day of the week of Falah, of the month of Shash, the year 1171, 31 seconds before death. Subject was a dark-eyed pregnant woman of middle years. The child did not survive. Heroes of presents the Stormlight Archive, Book 1, The Way of Kings. Before we start the episode, just warning, this is a spoiler-filled episode. All of our episodes will be spoiler-filled. We will be only spoiling the chapters that we will be covering, so no worries if you are reading ahead. All right.
Welcome to the new show. I am Shawn Q, your host as always, and with me is one of my best friends in my whole life, Jack F. How's it going, Jack?
How's it going, buddy?
Not bad, not bad. So we're actually doing this, right?
We are doing this, and I'm pretty darn excited that this is happening.
So like 3 days ago, you and I have like a little bit of a sit-down meeting, a Discord meeting where we talk about the future of Heroes of and what we should do. And I throw out that, hey, I'm kind of interested in doing a Stormlight Archive podcast. And you're like, I'll read that book.
And let's have a book club.
Yeah, let's have a Discord book club. So we're doing this.
Sounded like a novel idea.
Hey, I talked to you on Monday, right?
Monday.
Please do.
Yeah. You're talking about Monday, and I went down to my local bookstore. So unfortunately, I fully admit I hadn't heard of Brandon Sanderson. So I'm coming at this with absolutely fresh eyes and ears to this whole thing. Yeah. But I've only read the Prelude and the Prologue to the first book of the Stormlight Archives, which is
So you have no prior existence with Brandon Sanderson. So you've never read the Mistborn series. You've never read even the Wheel of Time, the end of a Wheel of Time, which he took over from Robert Jordan. Yeah. So you have no experience. You were just a dude who had time and was willing to read a book and liked talking to your friend. That's pretty much the show.
And on that note, I was a dude. Yeah. And this book is very dude. This is This is the kind of stuff you read and you go, dude. What's the deal? I want to talk about that.
Actually, if I could scroll through my text messages over the last few days, you literally just texted me "dude" a bunch of times because you kept reading and you were like, "dude."
I was like, because I kept reading one thing after another and going, "dude, like what's with that?" And I made all kinds of crazy notes for this thing. Right. So I don't know if you want me to just start with what you thought about the Prelude, or if you want me to.
Well, I'm kind of this is where I'm coming from. Is that we're on the Way of Kings, so we're doing. Let's announce what we're doing here. We're just rambling for no reason. We are going to be listening to the Stormlight Archive, and every 2 or 3 chapters, we're going to get together and do a quick chat about it. We're not going to go in depth into themes and foreshadowing and all this stuff. This series has got a lot of that, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to go kind of through it as for you as a first time reader, and just kind of talk about the series and see what you think. And ultimately, I mean, this whole thing, Heroes of, that we do is an RPG D&D podcast, right? We put out RPGs like the Invisible Sun game we're doing. The first season 1, we had a bunch of interviews with other D&D creators. So you and I, we come at this from a D&D perspective.
Yeah, sure. Well, and
so one of the
and I couldn't help but notice that, and we can get into it, because it more, I think, pertains to the prologue as opposed to the prelude. But
Right.
I could definitely step by step kind of see how, with certain scenes that Brandon was describing with one of his characters, it was very much like you would advance in level and abilities with a character in a D&D or RPG game.
Yeah, and you're going to see that that's actually a really good point to bring up, because a lot of these characters you're going to be seeing are going to level up. For lack of a better word, they're going to level up as you read these books, and it's part of the fun, right? So,
well,
let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's,
sure.
Let's get right into it. So,
so
you read. The assignment was to read the Prelude. Yeah, the assignment was to read the Prelude and the Prologue of the Way of Kings.
Yes.
And so, give me a kind of a quick thought. What did you think of them so far?
Okay, well, so first things first. I went down to my local used bookstore, hoping that it was there, and lucky for me, it was there. And I not only managed to pick up the Way of Kings, but also the next 2 books. So, but when I saw the Way of Kings on the shelf, when I first looked at it, as I was saying to you, I thought, oh, great, I can get all 3 in one volume. But no, so my first impression was my jaw was on the floor when I looked at the novel, and I went, oh, that's the first one. So Brandon Sanderson, there's a lot of words in here. This is good. I mean, I'm not. I will say no. I was going to say I'm not intimidated. No, I totally am. I'm very intimidated by reading all these words. To be honest, the last trilogy I read was a Piers Anthony trilogy, and it
Great
was
writer.
It was nowhere near as sort of big, I guess, as this.
Yeah,
this is like
you had said you had like a really great time at the
really
bookshop,
did,
and really liked it.
So
sometimes, like, how we come to a book is kind of part of the enjoyment of reading it, right? When you have a good experience, someone lends it to you or something. So yeah, this is cool. It's good way to start.
The guy in the used bookstore was really kind. He was, of course, respecting all manner of safety precautions under the current situation, and so we. I was able to pick this series up and started reading it right away. And the first thing, I always love this about fantasy fiction, but I just thought I would sort of say that my first experience was flipping to the map.
Right.
So opening up the book and looking at the map and looking at the world, and I thought, okay, this is really great, because I already feel like it's a destination.
There should be 2 separate world maps in there.
Well, there are. So the first map that I encountered, let's have a look here.
Yeah.
Map. It's titled Roshar.
Right.
And so I just was having a look at it, and I did notice one thing that I was wondering if this was going to become an element to the book, but there is a directional compass, and on the eastern side it says Stormwood, and on the westward side it says Leeward. So I was kind of wondering. So this is the first thing I looked at, and I did ponder about the map a little bit before I started reading. And I thought, wow, like is Brandon going to be going for describing this world without east and west connotations? Now I realized when I started to read, he does describe eastern and east there, and so far in my reading, Stormward and Leeward has not come up, but I'm curious as to why it's there.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I noticed that, and then flipping into the Prelude. So let me see. Okay, Prelude. Okay, so
the second map might be later. So
Yeah, the second map is later, but the Prelude, really cool introduction here.
Right.
Introduced to a few interesting characters. It's either Kalak or Kalak.
It's Kalak, I think. Yeah.
It's Kalak, and then the other character.
Just for transparency here, Jack is reading the actual hardcover novel, or not the hardcover. You're reading a paperback novel,
Correct,
and
paperback.
I am this time around. I am listening to the Audible version, which is read by Michael Kramer and his wife Kate Reading. They're fantastic, but I have read these novels several times over in actual hard form. Just this time around, I'm enjoying them in a different format, and it's reignited my my passion for this series. So I wasn't recently just I was recently just listening to it, and the Michael Kramer reads it as Kalak.
Okay, so Kalak. So again, introduced to Kalak and these thunder-classed stone beasts,
right?
That are the way that they describe it in the Prelude, that they are part of the rock, part of the granite, and they literally try to wrestle themselves away from the rock to come and attack. So I really thought it was
you'd like
very visual. I really like that. I wrote down all kinds of things that I didn't understand, like terms like surge binders.
Yes.
They don't really go into it in the Prelude, but they of course they're dropping all of these things.
I wrote down a bunch of terms as well. So
the battle that they describe in the Prelude is the scene is covered in red, orange, and violet blood. So a multicolored, blood-stained battle, which I thought was pretty cool. They dropped the concept of surviving desolations, and this is where I had to. That's when I stopped, and it was, and I had to think about this because they just introduced the character, and they're already hinting just in the Prelude that this character has died before at the hands of something similar to these thunderclasts. Okay. So I was like, what? So right away you meet a character, and right away you find out that they died already.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, so you died already. And then it goes into him meeting this other king that they refer to, and his name is Jezrien.
Jezrien, yeah.
Yeah, and then they refer to him as, okay, I've got more notes on this stuff. I totally geeked out on this.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that desolation, as described by Kalak, was a place that he was supposed to go back, but it was a place that he dreaded to go back to.
Technically, point of order, sir. Point of order. Technically, the desolation in this Prelude is not referred to as the place he has to go to. There's a place that he has to go to where he receives torture. And
that's not the desolation.
And there is desolations. So those two things are separate.
Oh, okay. So as a new reader, that's not really apparent to me.
Not super important to know now, because you'll hear these terms over and over again throughout the book, right? So to try to puzzle things out early on like this is a little futile, because you're going to end up figuring it out eventually. So
gotcha. Well, so these two warriors meet. So
Jezrien is referred to as the immortal king of the heralds.
That's right. So I did write that down because that was noted in the Prelude. They appear to have ended this battle, and Jezrien was waiting for Kalak because they weren't sure if he had survived this battle or not. And one of them, as it turns out, is missing. And each of the others had already placed their swords into stone, because it's announced from Jezrien to Kalak that it's time for the Oath Pact to end. And so they place their swords into this stone. And I find out that, let me see here. Jezrien is a king. Talanel is the one that apparently was missing or died.
Yeah, he died.
Between desolations, it's noted that it's a place of nightmares. and Talonel, I guess, would be there in that he's died. Kalak
and Yezrian says, we've decided that only one of us must complete the oath pact.
Correct. Now he dropped another name, Ishar. Thinks that it is enough if one is still bound to this oath pact. So again, first-time reader, I've only read these first two things, so I don't know what the oath pact refers to.
Right.
And it does seem to hint at an end to this cycle of desolations, but I'm not sure. Kalak, I like the way that they described that Yezrin was an immortal king, so that was kind of cool.
Neat.
Beautiful silver full plate, contrasting ragged tan skin, and shoddy leather primitive wraps. So these are other people that are in the aftermath of this battle. And then Yezrian refers to that these primitive sort of looking people, in contrast to them, certainly, that they see us as divinities. And then Kalak says, well, they have the radiance. That will be enough. I don't know what that means, the radiance. Yezrian was referred to as the King of Heralds. Yezrian's blade formed in hands from mist.
Right.
And appears to be like dripping with water. It's kind of how they, or condensation, how they allude to that.
Yeah.
And it's also very cold. Kalak does the same, puts his blade in, making 9 blades. And Kalak notices at the end of this prelude, notices that the empty spot where I guess Talonel's blade would have gone.
Right.
And it's missing, and his last thought in this prelude is forgive us. So great little opener.
Yeah, little intro, eh? Yeah. The one thing that I wrote down in my notes that you haven't mentioned about the prelude is I think it's Kalak says to Yezrian something about the enemy. Says, do you think it'll be enough to stop the enemy? And like referring to like the enemy almost like as a capital E as opposed to like just some regular enemy.
Oh, I missed the capital E on the enemy. I actually noted that blades.
There might not have been an actual capital E in this in the actual book, but like it's said like there is a capital E. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, I wrote down on my notes that I did think it was interesting that that when they described the blades that they were capitalized.
Right.
So that I thought was
something special.
Very curious. And it said that the masters could not be dead because the blades would vanish. So the blades that were put into stone, each of the master of that blade was still alive because the blade would have vanished as well. So that was cool. Yes. And
so then the prelude pretty much ends, right?
That's pretty much
there's not much else,
So prologue.
And then the prologue starts.
Oh, the prologue. Oh my god.
So the prologue starts with a curious little quote.
Yes. So that I really want to talk about because that quote is great. What stood out to me the most.
It's like a 2-sentence thing has so much information in it.
Well, and I only wrote down the first part of it that I thought that I'm really ruminating on, which is the love of men is a frigid thing, a mountain stream only 3 steps from the ice. So for me, that's the part that really kind of resonated with me. It's a little bleak, or maybe it's a little it's certainly pessimistic, or maybe it's they're just realistic. But that's the part of it that really stood out to me is that love is close.
I think the way it starts. I think the way it starts is the quote is like, "Oh, Storm Father."
Yes.
Like crying out to some kind of something.
Right, which I don't.
Oh, Stormfather. This is obviously paraphrasing. I don't have the book in front of me here, but it says,
says,
"Oh, Stormfather, the Everstorm comes."
That's right, and that's the last of it. Is that it is but 1,000 days, and the Everstorm comes.
Right.
Right, and it said this was collected.
Right.
By a dark-eyed pregnant woman of middle years. Child did not survive.
Right. Yeah, 30 seconds. Yeah, this quote was taken 30 seconds before her death.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know what she's referring to in terms of the Stormfather. I did like obviously, the artwork. Yeah. Like there's this little stone kind of archway on this page of the prologue. Mm-hmm. And I did notice that there are two eyes depicted, left and right, and inside of the eyes, two pupils.
Cool.
So I don't know if that has anything for the future, but that was kind of cool.
It all it all has something to do with something, dude.
Okay, so all these details mean, yeah. Well, I figured that with this much detail and sort of intricate sort of concepts and elements so
the prologue. So the prologue begins with a new character. I think I don't know if the paper book says it, but in the audiobook just recently it said between the prelude and the prologue, 4,500 years go by.
I know. Yeah, that was wonderful too. So again, a great way to, I guess, convey the vastness of the story.
Right.
It's a nice tool to convey that.
But we open on a new character named Zeth, son of Vallano, truthless of Shinovar.
That's right. Yes. So Zeth, let me see here. Yeah, the truthless, the Shin. Oh, I love this. That he wore white on this day. So when we meet this character, because on this day he is to kill a king. And the prologue is called.
And then he explains it a little later why, right?
Yes. So a little later we find out that it's a Parshendi tradition, and Parshendi are a group of people who, very interesting, they have dark and red marbled skin to their look. Right. So that's really a fascinating thing. I had to write down because I did enjoy the reference to something referred to as sapphire wine. So I wrote down that I would like some. So Brandon, if you can happily supply some.
Hook us up with some of that. Yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
So there's a treaty signing celebration going on. This is taking place on Alfcar, to which there's a second map that we get to see on the prologue here. And the Alethi and the Parshendi are dancing and enjoying this night in celebration of this peace treaty that has been signed. So, and on this night, of course, we meet Zeth, who has, I guess, been hired by the Parshendi to kill a king. So this is an assassin.
He says his masters, right?
His masters, that's right. So,
right.
So already they're setting it up wonderfully.
Yeah, he's at this peace treaty, right? This this treaty signing.
That's right. And they describe everybody
between the Parshendi,
and the Alfcar or the Alethi.
Right.
So they're dancing, they're frolicking, and all this is going on, which is wonderful. They drop a few names. So they drop the king's brother's name, which is Dalinar Kholin. They drop the king's daughter's name, Jasna. They drop the king's heir, Elokar, who is conducting affairs in the celebration after the king had already gone to his chambers. I would think. And then they drop.
Yeah, he sees Dalinar Kholin drunk. He wonders where Jasna is.
Yes.
And looks over at Elokar, who's still at the party, I think.
Right. Yeah. And then it describes music's friend.
Yes.
Tiny spirits, translucent ribbons zipping through the air. So
right.
So and this concept of spren comes up again and again
Right.
toward the
There's
end of the
fear
prologue.
spren and flame
Correct.
spren and
Yes.
anger spren. Yeah.
Now, so I have many
It seems
questions
like
about
it's
that.
there's right, of course.
So
So what do you think of that so far?
Well, it just, again, it's these concepts that are dropped on you in the narrative, in the story, and as a first-time reader, you've got to try to think of what you're going to do with that. Either you dismiss it and you'll catch it later, or you can ruminate. So, since we're doing it this way, I was thinking about it. So, a music spren, like, are these ribbons and translucent visions something that everyone can see, or is it something?
Yes.
Okay. So that I wasn't sure about, whether or not you had to have certain abilities to be able to see it.
No, there's certain kinds of spren that only certain kinds of people can see.
Okay.
But most basic spren, like flame spren or exhaustion spren or any of those kinds of ones, most people can see them.
So
it's
these
like
are
part of everyday life.
So yeah, and these are like spiritual manifestations of what's happening.
Yeah, and not just what's happening, but like objects and feelings and situations and stuff have spren. It's a very
I like that. I think
weird thing.
It's really cool, and it's so visual. Like, is this? I have to say, like, is this being worked into be like a television series or a movie, or no?
Not this one yet. Not yet. He's
It's
working
so
on
shame.
he's working on a
So-
different series called the Mistborn series, which you'll read that eventually. But I still want to talk about Sprens though.
Okay,
The
sure.
Sprens Sprens kind of remind me of something that would exist in like a Studio Ghibli like animation. You know what I mean? Like in Princess Mononoke, you know those forest spirits in Princess Mononoke, the little white ones that do that like little clicking sound and they turn their heads upside down and stuff.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of those, like these these spiritual like things that just are just always around, and it's like literally nobody's like freaking out. No one's no one's scared of them. It's just they're part of everyday life, you know?
Yeah, no, it's a subtle thing. It makes the world rich. So these things just make it richer, right? So I love the next note that I wrote after being dropped, the names, the dancing, you're going through Zeth's experience here, and he is describing that he is seeing these lanterns and lights that are in these sapphire gemstones that are infused with stormlight. And then, and the way that it's written is, I love this, that it's just written profane.
Yes.
And that happens over and over as Zeth notices certain things, and it's just
like it's walking on stone, he says.
Correct. It's profane. It's profane. I love it. So I really like that. And so that was cool. They also dropped that Alethi scholars are rumored to be close to producing new shard blades. So that's cool.
That's cool. There's like an artificer kind of thing to it where they can like kind of create stuff like that.
Yep.
It's neat.
They describe the Alethi men dark silk coats with gold and silver, and their women wear these grand dresses with beautiful bright colors. But this is interesting in describing the Alethi, and I'm not sure if the Alethi play a big role in this series, but they describe the women as having a left sleeve on their dress longer on, I think it's the right hand, longer.
They call it safe hand.
It's on the left hand. The sleeve is longer than on the right, and then the way that it's worded is that it's an odd sense of propriety.
Right.
So what I kind of was sort of thinking about there is if you're trying to be modest, well, it's only my left hand that's doing it.
Right.
So is there a deceptive quality to the Alethi, or is it hinting to an Alethi woman? That's what I took from it. I might be reaching at straws. I don't know. I just thought, you go to the length of describing this propriety, an odd sense of propriety, by describing that one sleeve is longer covering your hand, and not the other.
It's not like a. It's more of like a world building thing, right?
Yeah.
It'll come up again, and you'll find out what it is. It's not.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
more
So
like
it's
a
not.
religious kind of like
Yeah.
wearing a covering over your head or a longer dress to not show your ankles. It's that kind of thing.
Oh, okay. So also they describe gemstones in their hair in the Alethi women, and again, the gemstones are lit with stormlight, and again, Zeth says in his mind says profane.
Right.
So as this whole experience, he's walking around and he's just thinking, you know, he looks here, profane. He looks there, profane. So it's it's just kind of like a window into his mind. Then he sees these ancient Vorin statues, these 10 heralds.
Right.
Right. One of the statues was missing, and this, the name of this statue,
Shalash, I think.
Shalash, that's right. So King Gavilar of Alethi. So I'm assuming that's at this point. I'm assuming that's the king, and of course I know because I read to the end of this. So it is the king that he's trying to kill.
It's hard not to. It's hard not to know ahead of your own notes.
I know. So, and apparently King Alethi was devout in his worship towards these ancient Vorian heralds or deities. And again, I couldn't help but think, because of the prelude, you've got the 9 and one's missing, and here you've got 10 heralds of these.
Did you notice any similar names when he said when Zeth went through and said all the names of all the different statues? Did you see that if there were any names that were similar between the prelude and the prologue?
I read that. I did read those names, but I didn't write them down because I wasn't so sure.
Yeah, there was 2 names that were the same. There was 2 names that were the same. One of them was Talanel.
Yes,
and the other one was
that fell.
Yeah, and the other one was Kalak.
Oh, well, okay. So here's So the reason why I didn't make the connection, and I think it was just because I'm fairly, I guess, visual. Kalak is Kalak, and in the Vorin theological spelling, if you will, it's spelled Kelek.
Right.
So it's spelled differently, and then Talon. It's Talon. Telenalat?
Yeah, exactly.
Telenalat is how it's spelled, but it's Talonel is the way that they was written in the prelude. So I didn't actually make that connection, but now that you have brought that to my attention, that makes it even cooler.
Yeah, so it's like their Vorin religion is based on these characters we just read about in the prelude.
Okay. So all right. So, and we are, so I'm making a connection there. We are, how did Kalak word it? We are not gods to them, but we are.
Right. No, he did say that. Yeah. Yeah, he did say that. Yeah.
So that was fascinating. Let me see. Yeah. Profane with the rock walls. People are walking on the floor. In fact, he refers to, a little bit later, he refers to the guards that he encounters. He refers to them as stonewalkers.
Right.
And it's almost like I couldn't help but think, of course, with any of this kind of stuff, I'm thinking about, and we're going to get to all the pop culture things that I was thinking, but describing someone as a stonewalker, of course, I was thinking of Skywalker. And so I just kind of liked the application of the word in describing people. Like
I think he's using this like as a derogatory way.
Yes.
Because he said earlier it's profane to walk on stone.
Correct. Yeah. So I was thinking, I was just thinking it was kind of neat to describe somebody like, these bloody stone walkers, walking around.
And then
what are they doing?
And then what are they doing? Stonewalkers.
Yeah, bloody stuff.
And then Zeth shows us why he's here, right?
Yeah. So that according, let's way up here. Oh yes, and so why he's here and why he wears the white? So white to be old. White. He's wearing white not to blend into the night, to give warning, because if you are going to assassinate a person, they're entitled to see you coming.
Yeah.
And I
Awesome,
loved
right?
that. I loved it.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so badass.
That is so great. So,
Yeah.
and they described flames friend for the first time, dancing from torchlight like insects.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really cool description.
It's so cool, man. Like all I keep seeing in my head when I read it every time is like
so
just this
visual.
a beautiful animated, like
Yeah, it's a very, very visual place. Now Zeth, of course, now he's dealing with guards that are taking his attention. They're asking him to leave, and he's reaching for a pair of Stormlight lanterns. And now this is when everything goes down. He is absorbing the Stormlight into his body.
Yeah.
So that's when.
And they describe it. One of the best things I love, one of my favorite things about this whole series is they describe how the Stormlight is escaping from his mouth when his mouth is open. Like it's like this smoke almost, like this lit up smoke.
Yeah. Because you can only hang on to it apparently for a few minutes, except as Zeth points out in his thoughts, except for Voidbringers, if they existed. I don't know what that. Yeah,
it's another reference that we can't talk about yet. So
no, we can't talk about it.
We cannot.
No, we can't, because I have not read more than that. Okay, so that's got me pretty excited. And a small detail: the guards that are dealing with Zeth, they're carrying spears because guards that are not light eyes, are not allowed to carry a sword.
Mm-hmm.
So again, world building, and now we're getting into class delineations, or maybe even racial distinctions here.
It's definitely something about their like a class structure.
So breathes in the Stormlight, takes it inside of him. It's raging, the way it's worded, inside of him. And and this was beautifully done. So again, kudos to Brandon for this. Just loved it. Had to write it down. That when he took the Stormlight out of these lanterns, the hallway became darker, like a hilltop cut off from the sun, like from a transient cloud.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It just was so perfect in cool. Describing that. And then, of course, and this is where it went very visual for me. And because I love film so much, I could not help but go there. So when he starts to use the Stormlight in the way that it's described as...
Yeah, he's doing lashings.
And then the basic lashing, and then the subsequent lashings. Just this whole point. This is when the pages for me started to turn faster and faster.
Yeah.
Man! I couldn't stop flipping. I was like, okay, the action is here. It's time. This is
the reason why we had to record tonight and not wait till Saturday, because I need you to keep reading, because the pages are going to keep turning.
So this is when, at least for me, I kept turning the pages and writing down fewer notes.
Yeah. So the first thing he does is he creates a lashing where he can, like, the end of the hallway ends up being down for him.
Yeah. Exactly.
How nuts is that?
Okay. Well, it is. Okay. It's absolutely crazy. First of all, I love it. It's literally it's Brandon. Like right away, he's already kind of like turned the world upside down a few times, because again, you start off with a prelude, you're introduced to these characters, they've already died before. Right away it's like, I'm just meeting somebody for the first time and they've already died. So okay, so your world has already been turned over. Then you fast forward 4,500 years, and then you get to basically like using the Stormlight to basically, I guess, manipulate the forces of nature, if they're even worded as that. I think the way he words it is that they Well, hang on. So that's on my next page of notes. But just prior to him using this lashing and this ability, okay.
Next page of notes.
I got it. So well, I've almost.
Let me just find my index for all my notes here, and
I'm gonna get my table of contents out here. So what I loved about this battle that starts out is these two guards that are approaching Zeth, and they've already asked him to leave. And then they see him absorb this light.
Right.
Okay, so they see it and they ask him something along the lines of, "What are you, spirit or man?" And his reply is, "I'm ellipsis ... I'm sorry."
Yeah.
And then he unleashes this lashing.
Right.
So I thought it was pretty cool that he's saying.
So he does like the legit like the greatest drop kick ever. He is in a hallway. There's two dudes at the end of the hallway. He turns the end of the hallway down, which means he's dropping like a straight drop.
Correct.
He kicks each of them with each of his feet.
And
so
they're
it's
shocked.
like
they're
completely shocked. Yeah, they're like in D&D terms, they're like stunned right now. They're like completely like they like failed their reflex check and they're completely stunned.
And then he's able to lash himself to the walls, and he's able to maneuver on the side and the ceiling and get behind.
Yeah, so he lashes himself to the end of the hallway, which ends up turning it kind of like on its end, so that he is falling straight down towards it, and he double drop kicks these guys in the head. Like I like Ricky the Dragon Steamboat would be jealous of this drop kick, is how amazing this drop kick was.
Okay, well, and then there's the lashing of the one that's on the ceiling, and then impaling them on his own on the spear that was dropped.
Yeah,
and just again manipulating. I know I wrote it down. Maybe I did. Maybe I was too excited because when I was reading it, I didn't write it down.
Oh yeah, it's an awesome scene. We don't have to go through the whole scene. We don't have to go through the whole fight scene. It's really hard to talk about fight scenes unless we're dissecting it from
the ability to manipulate force, spren, or God that holds men to the ground. So he's manipulating forces, spren, and God, powers of gods.
Yeah, so gravity.
Yeah. But that's the way it's described. And again, his clothes are crackling and dropping flakes of frost. And for me, describing the flakes of frost could have a completely other meaning, but I refer back to the quote that started off the prologue, which is that the love of men is a stream a few steps away from the ice. Mm-hmm. So because that frozen quote, it's just in my mind. So whenever they're describing these flakes of frost, I just keep thinking of that quote for something. That's why I wrote it.
I like that, actually. I like that connection. I don't think I've ever made that connection. That's really nice.
Yeah, it was, and I'm just kind of wondering if all of this struggle, if they're describing like love, which is something that could be a theme or one of the themes of this series. It comes from this cold place where things it's very tenuous.
Yeah.
So like it can turn to ice, or we can maintain it. I don't know. I'm not sure what my thoughts are on that, but I was thinking a lot about that as I was finishing this wonderful prologue.
That'll be a to be continued, right?
Oh, this is amazing. The shard blades, they sever the soul itself. They don't actually do damage to the physical body. Well, if it touches your arm, you can't use that arm anymore. It goes through all inanimate objects, destroying them.
Right, so like armor is useless against it.
So again, I'm sorry to bring up Star Wars but Skywalker. These blades are, they're I'm not going to say that they're like a lightsaber, but because of those abilities with being able to go through inanimate objects so easily, I couldn't help but think about something like that. Of course, I wasn't imagining it as a lightsaber, but the shard blades did sort of, I don't know, give me that love.
There's definitely a similarity there.
Idea. of that idea. Yeah. So the guards scream out that shard bearer is here. They refer to Zeth as a shard bearer. Oh, and this is when the violets.
It's funny how they instantly call him a shard bearer, and because of the sword, but they don't say it, like they don't really
know what
they
that
don't really
is?
react. Well, they react to the gravity stuff, but it's not. They don't know what to think of that stuff, right? They know what a shard bearer is, though.
Yeah. This is when they start getting scared. Is when the guards start dying. This is when the violet fear spren crawls out of the stone ceiling,
right,
around the guard that was going to be impaled.
He has a few fights where he does a lot of the same kind of lashings. He does that thing with the door, where he uses the lashing to like seal it.
And then, of course, all this leading up to the encounter. Oh, this was so well done.
Yeah.
And literally, there are so few notes right now because once it got to shard plate, once you had this knight show up.
Yeah.
Now the knight in the plate, and there's just the way that they described the blue.
Yeah.
The sapphire stormlight that is sort of comprising the power behind this armor. And how Zeth is kind of dealing with inside. He's like, well, I don't have this armor. I never wanted it. But I know what it can do. And I know what I need to do to fight against this enemy. And so, of course, a series of action sequences unfold. And, of course, this is all, and the paragraphs are just going through them. And, of course, concluding to a point where Zeth manages to definitely injure this this shard plate knight, I guess, and then takes
the shard bearer,
and takes the opportunity though to head after the king that he saw being shuffled away by others.
Right.
So he does battle with this fully plated knight character, and then sees an opportunity in the battle to go after the king.
Right.
But then, and he starts to, but then he realizes he has this other thought. And
why isn't the shard bearer chasing me?
Right.
That's what he thinks. Why? Like he should be on my ass right now. I don't think I killed him.
And he didn't.
No.
And Zeth was smart enough to figure that out. And then, of course, as a writing tool, that's wonderful. Of course, so we get to learn that this fully plated knight was indeed the king that he was after.
Yeah, he says something like, where would a king be safest, in the hands of his stewards shuffling him away, or in a full plate of armor with a magical godly weapon?
Yeah. Right. So I love that little misdirection. Of course, I mean, I didn't see it really coming. I
didn't see it coming when I first read it either, dude. I didn't see it coming either.
But I thought, wow, that's awesome. It makes Seth intelligent and wise, or certainly, definitely cunning.
Yeah, he's definitely both. Yeah,
and
he's very cunning.
So, wonderful. And then getting to the end, I don't know what I last wrote down. Oh, it was when the king was asking who sent him, and he said a couple of names.
Yeah.
And the king was surprised that it was the Parshendi.
Right.
And then the king, upon his death, asks his assassin to deliver a message to his brother,
whom we met earlier in the chapter, right?
Right.
He was the drunkard.
Correct. And that message, let me just see here. The message was to
find the most important words a man can say.
Correct. Yeah. Zeth took it upon himself to write that out in his blood.
Right.
And scrawled it on the wood. Brother, you must find the most important words a man can say.
Yep. Yeah. It's the whole fight between the king and Zeth is amazing. the end, whenever he's like, you know what, one of the things I love is the when the shard plate gets damaged, it starts to puff out a
Light.
stormlight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. When the shattering of that, exactly, because this light is now spilling out of this this enemy, this foe of yours. It's not blood; it's light.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, I believe that Zeth. I'm not sure if Zeth could siphon off of that.
I think he does. Yeah.
So he can breathe it in. So again, really cool on the visual sort of side of things. And going back to when gravity is being manipulated in the lashings, man, I mean, of course, as a pop culture, film sort of person, you're coming off of The Matrix, you're coming off of video games like Prince of Persia and others where you're crawling around on the sides, or you go to Christopher Nolan's Inception, where they play with gravity visually there, and it was very easy for me in reading that scene how to visualize.
Yeah, very much so. I thought it was the same. I think I thought of Inception when I first read it too. Like it was clear to me that it was perfect.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited. The artwork on the cover is amazing. Yeah, I really don't know what I'm looking at with this divisive world, this rock, this barren rock, and these two warriors on the front. Like, I'm not sure if that's Kalak meeting Yezrian, or if that's a later battle that's referenced. I don't know, but yeah.
But the king is dead. Long live the king. Right?
Yeah, the king is dead. Long live the king.
Yeah. So that's the end of the prologue.
That's the end. That's it. So
one of the things I wanted to point out before we end is that throughout the chapter of the prologue, Zeth doesn't really like himself very much. He says something like when he sees the shard bearer for the first time, he says, "Good, maybe someone can end his miserable life." He
correct, yeah.
Something's up with him. He's pitiful almost, and like he says, "I'm sorry" to those two guards, right? So there's something. There's something underneath all of this here that he's dealing with.
Well, and even right to the end, the last sentence of the of his death, saying that he does not want the king's shard blade. He had no use for it. The blade that Seth already carried was curse enough.
Yeah.
So he already kind of considers what he is, being a shard bearer, a curse.
And he's apologizing for what he has to do. So there's definitely some regret here in this character. So.
Well, I mean, obviously, I wish we could talk more about it, but I don't know anymore. Yeah. So next time we do this,
you'll have to read more.
Well, there you go.
So this is our first
one. It's Above Silence. So I'm going to read that next. I'm not sure how long it is, or
you read whatever you can read, and I will listen again, and hopefully we will be able to record again soon, because this was really fun.
I look forward to it.
You're bringing a different passion to this, different eye to this than I think I had when I first read it. So I'm really enjoying this. This is really fun.
Oh, and you're making it so easy to talk about it, and it's nice to be able to get excited about something like this and talk about it with a friend. So I really appreciate it.
And I mean, it's a perfect. We get to hang out and talk about books. So what more do you want?
There you go.
Cool, dude.
Yep. I can't wait for next time.
Yeah, read up, and we'll talk again.
Will do.
All right.
If you're interested in supporting the show, head over to Patreon at patreon.com/heroesof. If you want to reach out and talk to Jack or I about the series or about the show, you can do so at Heroes of One on Twitter or at Heroes of Acathra on Instagram. Thanks a lot.